Hi, thanks for joining me. This is Dr. Richard Herbold, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about functional neurology, which is one of my passions. So I've been practicing for over 36 years, and the model that I currently embrace is very different from what I did 36 and a half years ago. And that should be the process in private practice, in interventionally looking at problems. So the degrees that I've accumulated through the years and the experience that I've had help to sculpt the approach that I take to healthcare. Chiropractic neurology or functional neurology or clinical neurology, depending on what you want to reference, is one of the board certifications and specialties that I hold and embrace as one of the most powerful tools that I share with clients on a day-to-day basis. So a small percentage of chiropractors actually have achieved this board certification, and functional neurology, just to be clear, is different from medical neurology, although the background of education diagnostically is the same. It's the same board that qualifies medical neurologists as chiropractic neurologists. So just understand, when you go to somebody with that board certification and that degree of achievement, the evaluation process is very comprehensive to understand what we call the longitudinal level of the lesion. So the brain, the way it works, is on a hierarchy basis, and there are different levels and layers of neurological function that we go through with our assessment. So if somebody comes in, let's say, with some sort of a tremor, as an example, the quest in understanding the tremor is where the dysfunction is neurologically. So we kind of work through the process. Is it at the receptor level? Is it at the cord level? Is it at the brain level? There's different levels of intervention that through physical examination and case history evaluation, we go through to qualify where the problem is, and part of that could also be using sophisticated tools such as CAT scans and MRIs, as well as obviously physical examination. So in functional neurology, the first step is to qualify where the problem is, and once we've done that successfully, we then employ what are called clinical trials. So for instance, if we think there might be a disconnect in the vestibular system as far as balance and coordination, which is greatly associated with the cerebellum in the brain, this vestibular system can then be stimulated to see, as an example, if somebody has a tremor and it's evoked by a cerebellar demise. If it's not pathological to the point where it's totally broken and irreparable, which is usually not the case, there's always something that we can do to modify things, including metabolic interventions. But purely from a functional neurology perspective, and if there is a vestibular contribution, as it's referred to, we might do something like nonlinear complex motions which stimulate the cerebellum. So we might have a client actually do figure eights or do an alphabet, which is a non-linear, it's not straight. And if in fact that tremor changes for just a moment, we now know that there's a connection, and we now know that the intervention that we can use to help to stabilize that portion of the brain that doesn't work is part of your therapy. So the intervention of functional neurology is very different than medical neurology, and yet we want to take advantage of both of those as tools depending on the dysfunction that you have. So the passion that I have for understanding where a problem comes from is truly the remediation or the improvement of that problem. And as a functional neurologist, as a clinical nutritionist, as a practitioner of almost 40 years, I blend everything together in my interventions, and this is one of my most powerful and pleasurable ways of treating people. So I hope that was a helpful explanation for part of what I do in my office, and I look forward to meeting you. This is Dr. Richard Herbold at Capital District Vitality Center. Thanks again for joining me.